from Washington, D.C., right in the middle of it all today, the big day on Fast Track, and in my mind, the globalist giveaway of U.S. jobs and sovereignty. So I've tipped my hand where I stand on it. Joining us now, Republican, 1st District, Virginia, Congressman Rob Wittman. Congressman Dr. Wittman, good to have you with us, sir. It's been way too long.
John, it's great to be back with you. Thanks for having me on this morning.
Now, just so you know, we're live in Roanoke in the Star City, and we're live at Nancy Dye for Senate campaign headquarters. And in studio with me, and I got to tell you, he's on fire today, House of Delegates member Republican Greg Habib from the 8th District. I don't know, he got up today. He said he ate a strawberry Pop-Tart. He's all fired up. So he's with us in studio.
Well, it's great to be with you and Delegate Habib, and I know that Nancy Dye is going to be a great Virginia senator for us. So we're looking forward to getting out there and helping all of our great candidates in this election cycle. As Delegate Habib had alluded to, we got great candidates. We're out there really hitting the ground hard. We've got great operation on getting our message to people, and our message is a message about making sure that we see the reality of opportunity in Virginia realized by every Virginian. That's a message that sells. It's a message that really appeals to people, and it's one that we're going to win these seats on.
Okay, Representative Wittman, I want to cut right to the chase. Fast Track today. Where are you on it and why?
John, I'm a no. There's just something simple in concept about this. I want to make sure that we are not picking winners and losers in this economy, especially as our United States businesses operate in a world economy. My concern with this particular authority is that it does ultimately pick winners and losers. There's a lot of discussion about saying, well, it opens up markets. The difficulty, and I've read this bill from stem to stern, the difficulty is in how it sets the objectives for what our trade negotiators are supposed to do. Doesn't, in my mind, seek true equity in that negotiation. Another thing, too, is remember that we are empowering those trade negotiators to do these things. And then, while Congress does have a say, it's only an up or down, yes or no vote. There are some mechanisms there for members of Congress to express their ideas and concerns in the bill, but there's no active mechanism for us to actually be able to get that into the trade agreements as they are negotiated. So I think from top to bottom, there are problems with this. I've talked to the leadership about this. Paul Ryan and I have had multiple conversations, and I respect Paul, but I disagree with him in how this is structured. And John, as you know, if we don't have a situation where truly our businesses can compete on a level playing field, many times, as you talked about, in labor markets, in costs, in regulatory frameworks, both here and abroad, if we can't do that, and if this bill still ends up picking winners and losers, it's not in the best interest of American businesses. And I have some deep, deep concerns about that. And I've heard from a lot of business organizations that say, oh, we like it. And I said, well, let me ask you about this, the details of the bill. And when I get into the details of the bill, all of them will say, well, yeah, that's not really what we'd like, or we understand that that's a problem. So I look at it from a standpoint of, is it really going to be in our nation's best interest in the long term? Is it going to level the playing field for our businesses? Is it truly going to make sure that there are not winners and losers in this? This should be a bill, if this is done right, John, it should be a situation where all of our businesses win in opening up these markets. I don't believe this bill achieves that.
Well, look, Congressman Wittman, I think you hit the nail on the head. This is picking winners and losers, and the whole thing is contrived. Now, you've got a doctorate. You're a doctor. You're a student in history. You go back to the NAFTA agreement in 1992. It got implemented in January of 93. You know what? We're hearing the same arguments for TPP today, Congressman, that I heard for NAFTA, which, as you know, I was vehemently opposed to back in 92, as if they took the documents, dusted them off, and took out NAFT and put in TPP. I'm getting the same arguments. They said back then our trade differential, our export-import balance with Mexico would continue to increase our way. When NAFTA went into play in 1993, our positive trade balance with the country of Mexico, Congressman, was $5 billion our way. 2014, it's $55 billion their way. That failed miserably. I mean, this stuff, some of the things that they come out and say, like it's going to create jobs, it's not going to create jobs. All it is going to do is continue to cost the American middle-class worker jobs. And if you look at, Congressman, the collapse of the U.S. blue-collar society and the middle class, you can date this back to 1993. I don't see where it makes any sense to be involved trading with countries like Vietnam that are paying their workers 55 cents an hour. What say you?
Well, and John, I think that's a very important point to understand historically where other agreements have come. And even if you go back just to 2002, in the previous Trade Promotion Authority legislation, it still lacked in a number of areas for us to have true equity, whether it's wage equity, whether it's regulatory equity. And I'll speak just for Virginia. One of the things I pointed out to leadership is our seafood industry. You know, there's an unlevel playing field in imports coming into Virginia, competing against our products, just as you point out, much lower labor rates, with literally no consideration about the safety of those products. Only 0.1% of those products are even looked at when they come into country. Yet our businesses here are subjected to some pretty stringent requirements in producing, whether it's crab meat, oysters, finfish, whatever it may be. That's a great example about saying, hey, we open the door for these other products to come in at cheaper labor rates. Our producers then have to comply with much stricter requirements in producing that, and on top of that, a much higher required wage structure in paying their employees to produce these products. A great example of how the playing field is not level, and this doesn't do anything to level the playing field. There's still going to be situations where products are dumped on the market. There's still going to be situations where wage and labor rates are not going to be equalized as far as the requirements, whether it's the OSHA requirements here in this country versus the other country, the wage rates there. It does not get us to where we need to be, and it still picks winners and losers. So I have deep concerns about where this bill takes us as an economy. And remember, the president can still, through his constitutional authority, negotiate trade agreements. This provides him the ability to do it in a broader expanse and allows it to be done more quickly. I know a lot of folks have pointed out the lack of transparency in getting information on these agreements. And I think that they are spot on. It's even difficult for me to get down to the area where the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement is to read it. And then when you read it, it's a very interesting but contorted document in what truly it is trying to accomplish with a trade agreement with these various Asian countries. So I think there are a lot of different concerns there. All of them should be very important to everybody. I think everybody out there has an interest in making sure that we get the opportunity to have a fair and level playing field in trading with other partners around the world and making sure that those agreements don't pick winners and losers.
Dr. Wittman, let's look at median U.S. household income since NAFTA became a reality. In 1992, the median income in the United States, just under $50,000, $49,836. 2013, that's 2 decades later, median U.S. household income, $51,000. It basically went up $1,000 in 2 decades. That just doesn't work. You can date all this stuff right back to NAFTA, which came into play in 93, cost us 10 million manufacturing jobs, but it's had a downward pressure on wages, just like you articulated earlier. I don't see how this trade bill is going to do anything that NAFTA didn't do, which has been a disaster for us.
Well, John, in the broader perspective, what we have to look at the United States to restore wage growth is making sure that we have an economy that is not just in the service realm, but that is in the manufacturing realm. We have lost manufacturing jobs, and those have been career-ladder jobs. Those have been jobs where people start, they develop a skill, a marketable skill. They grow that skill, they grow their earning potential, and they make a career out of it. We don't see that today. What we see today with wage stagnation is people having to work multiple jobs, many times jobs that don't have a career ladder path for them, which means they're at the ceiling of what they can make. So the only way they can make more money is to seek a second job. That is, as you said, a product of what this economy is doing and how it's being shaped. And what we have to do is to look at all the different aspects, not only what we do with trade agreements in other nations, but what do we do in this nation to grow that part of the economy, to grow the economy where we make things. And, you know, we have been the best in the world at making things. We have the best technology here. In fact, most of the innovations around the world occur right here in the United States. Now, we do the technological aspects of that, the engineering aspects of that, the science aspects of research, innovation, and development. Yet we don't do the things that we used to do, and that is make those things. You know, the flat screen TV was developed here. If you go to a store today and try to buy a flat screen TV that's made in the United States, you can't do that. We ought to look at it and say, not only should we develop this technology here, but let's develop the ability for us to manufacture it in a high-quality way, which we can do. That's where this technology was born on the manufacturing side, is right here. Those are things we have to do. And when we do that, the opportunities abroad open themselves up because we have not only the best technology, but the best products. And the best products in the worldwide marketplace find a place to be sold. We can do that. We can compete in the worldwide marketplace, given the chance to operate on a level playing field.
Congressman Wittman, I'm going to go to the Middle East, if we can shift to foreign policy. 2 days ago, President Obama committing 450 troops, advisors, if you will, to Iraq, 75 of those trainers. But along with that, they have a litany of rules of engagement stipulations. With the disaster that's going on with ISIS, how does 450 additional advisors solve anything, in your view?
John, 450 additional advisors doesn't solve the issue that we face, and that is ISIS continuing to expand their resistance that they're facing from Iraqi forces declining, the resistance that they face from even friendly Syrian forces, friendly to our cause, is being reduced. If this is going to be successful in an effort to defeat ISIS, it has to not only include the United States, it has to include other like-minded Arab nations. And I've been over there to meet with King Abdullah. I've had conversations with the Egyptian consulate about what we can do in addition to our Arab allies there, like Jordan, like Saudi Arabia, like Egypt. There has to be an Arab face to this. I think King Abdullah said it well when I had conversations with him. He said, this has to be an effort by Muslim nations, and it has to have an Arab face. The United States can be part of helping that and using the assets that we have, gathering the intelligence, doing the surveillance and reconnaissance, bringing that information together, coordinating efforts on the ground, but it has to be an effort of the Arab nations there. This cannot be a continual revolving door where America comes in, stabilizes things, spends our money, sheds our blood there, only to have that degrade because of lack of leadership in this country, like we've seen in Iraq, have it devolve again, and then come back in and restabilize the country. And we know once our presence is gone that happens again. This has to be an Arab world effort. The United States can be part of it, but we cannot go back into a massive ground operation here and expect this in the long term to be successful. We can help. We can coordinate. We can fly airstrikes. We can do the intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. We can help the command and control of these different nations. But without their participation, and I'm talking about significant participation, not just, a few folks. I'm talking about their aircraft, their boots on the ground, their efforts along with us. This will not be a situation where ISIS would be defeated. And I do believe the situation we're seeing with extremism, both in the Middle East and in sub-Saharan Africa, is is a situation that continues to grow in some areas out of control. And this will be a generational effort that has to be pursued, because this is a battle for people's mindset about how they view both Islam and how they view the non-Islamic believers in the world. That ideology is starting to permeate many of these areas where the Islamic faith starts to spread. And when it does, unfortunately, it spreads in the extremist form, which lends itself to these organizations like ISIS, like El Nusra Front, and others there that look to recruit folks, radicalize them, and have them project this extremist form of Islam. It is a scary situation, one that is generational, but the only way that it's going to be fixed is with the U.S. working with other Arab nations, like-minded Muslim nations, and to eradicate this. Anything short of that is going to fall well short of our goal of defeating ISIS.
Dr. Wittman, we've got a minute and a half. Here's the issue with that is, so far that's not happened. So if we're unable to pull that coalition together, should we just get out of the area?
Well, I think we need to put all of our effort into pulling that coalition together. Be very specific about what we expect out of them. Make a specific ask. Say, we need for you to do this. We need for you to do that. You heard the other day, the president says he doesn't have a complete plan. John, how can we get in there and have any hope of defeating ISIS if the United States doesn't have a complete plan? A complete plan must include actively engaging these other nations. That's the only hope that we have to be successful. There's no other nation in the world that's going to lead on this. The United States must lead, but it must lead in bringing these other nations together, including other allies that are like-minded. This is in the world's interest to defeat all these different forms of extremism. If we don't do that, who will? The United States needs to lead. The world is looking for leadership. We've always led. We must lead now. And the president saying that we don't have a complete plan, I believe, is an abdication of United States leadership and sends a terrible message to the rest of the world.
Okay, Dr. Wittman, we're out of time. We want to thank Congressman Rob Wittman for being with us today, as always. If you want more information, go to whitman.house.gov. That's whitman.house.gov. Also, sign up for his newsletter there. Congressman Wittman, thanks for being with us.
John, thanks again. Delegate Habib, thanks again, too. Thanks for all your hard work. We look forward to seeing you all soon.